The scrawny mongrel collapsed at Olivia Nash's doorstep on a Tuesday morning in July of 1882, ribs showing through matted fur, and she knew without hesitation she would save it just like all the others. She was only 23 years old, living alone in a weathered cabin on the outskirts of San Diego, California, but her heart had always been too big for her own good. Her father had died 2 years prior, leaving her the small property and enough savings to scrape by if she was careful. The cabin sat on 3 acres of dusty earth where the desert met the edge of town, close enough to civilization for supplies but far enough that nobody questioned her growing collection of abandoned creatures. Olivia carried the dog inside, speaking softly as she laid it on a blanket near the stove. The animal whimpered, its brown eyes filled with equal parts fear and desperate hope. She heated water and soaked strips of cloth, cleaning the wounds on its paws and the burrs tangled in its coat. By evening, the dog was drinking broth from her hand, and Olivia felt that familiar warmth spread through her chest. This was the 7th animal she had taken in over the past 6 months. 3 dogs, 2 cats, a lame burro someone had left tied to a post downtown, and a goat that had wandered from God knows where now shared her modest home and the small lean-to-shed her father had built for storing tools. The animals were bursting out of every available space. The cats claimed the loft where she slept, curling around her feet at night. The dogs rotated between the main room and the shed, though they all wanted to be inside when the temperature dropped after sunset. The burro and goat stayed in the shed permanently, but it was barely large enough for 1 animal, let alone 2. Olivia knew she needed a better solution, but lumber was expensive and her carpentry skills were limited to basic repairs. She was carrying water to the shed 3 days later when she heard the sound of hoofbeats approaching. Olivia straightened, shielding her eyes against the bright morning sun. A man on a bay horse rode toward her property, leading a pack mule behind him. As he drew closer, she could make out his features. Tall and lean, probably in his mid-20s, with dark hair that needed cutting and several days of stubble on his strong jaw. He wore the practical clothes of a working cowboy, dusty denim and a faded blue shirt, a worn hat pulled low over his eyes. "Morning, miss," he called out, touching the brim of his hat as he reined in his horse about 20 feet from where she stood. "Name is Vincent Garrison. I am looking for work in the area, and I heard in town you might need some help out here." Olivia frowned slightly, setting down the water bucket. "I did not tell anyone in town I needed help." "No, madam, but Mrs. Chen at the general store mentioned you have been buying extra feed and supplies. She said you take in strays." His voice was deep and steady, with a slight drawl that suggested he had come from somewhere farther east, maybe Texas or Oklahoma. "I have experience with animals and building. I can work for reasonable wages, just enough for supplies and such. I am not looking to settle down anywhere permanent, but I could use a few weeks of honest work before I move on." She studied him carefully. Vincent sat easily in the saddle, his hands relaxed on the reins, his expression open and patient as he waited for her response. The bay horse looked well cared for despite the dust of travel, and the pack mule was in good condition. These were signs of a man who treated animals right. Behind her, she heard the chorus of barking that erupted whenever anyone approached. The new dog had already gained enough strength to join the others in announcing visitors. "I do take in animals that need help," Olivia said slowly. "But I cannot afford to hire anyone, Mr. Garrison. I barely have enough to feed everyone as it is." Vincent nodded, glancing past her toward the shed where the burro was braying in response to the barking dogs. "What if I work just for room and board? I can sleep in my bedroll wherever there is space." I am good at building things, and I can see from here that your shelter is about to burst at the seams. Give me 2 weeks, and I will build you something better. After that, if you want me to move on, I will go with no hard feelings." Olivia bit her lower lip, weighing the offer. She desperately needed help, and 2 weeks of labor in exchange for meals and a place to sleep seemed too good to refuse. Still, she was a young woman living alone, and reputation mattered even out here on the edge of town. But something in Vincent's steady gaze made her feel he was trustworthy. "All right," she said finally. 2 weeks. You can sleep in the lean-to shed if you do not mind sharing space with a burro and a goat. I will provide 3 meals a day and whatever supplies you need for building." "That is more than fair, Miss Nash." Vincent dismounted smoothly and extended his hand. Olivia shook it, feeling the calluses on his palm, the firm grip that spoke of hard work and integrity. "I will get started right away if that suits you. Mind if I look around first, see what you have got and what you will need?" She nodded, and together they walked the property. Olivia found herself relaxing as Vincent asked practical questions about the animals, how many she expected to take in, what kind of space would work best. He knelt to examine the ground, testing the soil and checking the angles of the sun. The dogs swarmed around him, tails wagging, and he greeted each one with patience, letting them sniff his hands before scratching behind their ears. "You have got good instincts with them," Olivia observed, watching how even the newest, most skittish dog responded to Vincent's calm energy. "Grew up on a ranch in eastern Texas," Vincent explained, straightening up and brushing dirt from his knees. "My father raised cattle and horses. I have been working with animals since I could walk. Lost both my parents to fever 3 years back, sold the ranch to pay debts, and I have been moving around ever since. Done everything from driving cattle to breaking horses to building fences. Figured I would see some of the country before I decide where to land." "I am sorry about your parents," Olivia said softly. "I lost my father 2 years ago. I understand how that changes everything." Their eyes met, and something passed between them in that moment, a recognition of shared grief and understanding. Vincent cleared his throat and looked away first, gesturing toward the shed. "Let me get my tools unpacked and I will start taking measurements. If you have paper and pencil, I can sketch out a plan for you to approve before I begin." Over the next hour, Olivia watched as Vincent worked with focused efficiency. He measured the shed, paced out the available land, and made notes in a small leather journal he pulled from his saddlebag. She went inside to prepare lunch, but found herself glancing out the window more often than necessary, observing the way he moved with easy confidence, the way he paused to pet the goat when it nudged his leg seeking attention. At noon, she called him in for a meal of beans, cornbread, and coffee. Vincent washed up at the pump outside before entering, removing his hat and hanging it on a peg by the door. He sat at the small wooden table that took up most of the cabin's main room, and Olivia served them both, taking a seat across from him. "This is delicious, Miss Nash," Vincent said after his first bite. "I have been eating my own cooking for months, and I am not very good at it." Olivia smiled. "Please call me Olivia. If you are going to be working here for 2 weeks, we might as well be on friendly terms." "Only if you call me Vincent," he replied, returning her smile. It transformed his face, softening the hard edges that came from years of outdoor work and wandering. "I drew up some plans while you were cooking. Would you like to see?" He pulled out the journal and opened it to a page covered in neat sketches. Olivia leaned forward, studying the drawings. Vincent had designed a proper shelter with separate stalls, a covered area for storage, and a small enclosed space that could serve as a recovery room for sick animals. "This is wonderful," she breathed, tracing the lines with her finger. "But this will take more than 2 weeks to build." Vincent shrugged. "Depends on how much I can get done each day. I work fast and the design is practical, not fancy. If I can salvage some lumber from that old collapsed fence on the south end of your property, that will save on materials. I noticed it when I rode in." "I did not even think about using that," Olivia admitted. "My father built that fence 15 years ago, but a storm brought it down last winter and I could not figure out how to repair it." "No sense in repairing it," Vincent said, "but the wood is still good for other purposes." "I will need to buy some fresh lumber for the frame and roof, but we can reuse a lot of what you already have. It will keep costs down." They spent the rest of lunch discussing details. Olivia found conversation with Vincent surprisingly easy. He listened when she talked, asked thoughtful questions, and did not treat her like she was foolish for taking in so many animals. Most people in town thought she was wasting her time and money, that she should be focused on finding a husband instead of collecting strays. Vincent never once suggested such a thing. After lunch, Vincent headed into town with a list of supplies and money Olivia had counted out from her savings. She watched him ride away, then turned her attention to the animals. The newest dog was gaining strength rapidly, already starting to play with the others. She spent the afternoon cleaning, cooking, and tending to various small injuries and needs. The work was endless, but she had never minded. Each animal she saved felt like a small victory against the harshness of the world. Vincent returned before sunset, the mule loaded with lumber, nails, and other supplies. He unloaded everything carefully, stacking the wood where it would stay dry, then tended to his horse and the mule with the same thoroughness. Olivia brought him dinner on a plate, which he ate sitting on a stump near the shed, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of orange and red. "Beautiful out here," he commented as Olivia lingered nearby, not quite ready to go back inside. "Peaceful. I can see why you chose to stay." "I did not really choose," Olivia said, leaning against the fence. "This was my father's place. After he died, I did not have anywhere else to go." "But you are right, it is peaceful, and far enough from town that people leave me alone most of the time." "You do not like people much?" Vincent asked, glancing up at her with a slight smile. "I like people fine," Olivia replied. "I just like animals better. They do not judge you or expect you to be something you are not. They are just grateful for kindness." Vincent nodded slowly. "I understand that. Animals are honest. People are complicated." They stood in companionable silence as darkness fell and stars began to appear overhead. Finally, Olivia excused herself to go inside, and Vincent settled into the shed for the night. As she climbed into the loft with the cats curling around her, Olivia found herself thinking about the cowboy sleeping in her shed, wondering about his story, what had brought him to her doorstep. The next morning, Olivia woke to the sound of hammering. She dressed quickly and went outside to find Vincent already hard at work, having started before dawn. He had cleared the area where the new shelter would stand and was setting posts into the ground. Sweat already dampened his shirt despite the early hour. "You should have waited for breakfast," Olivia called out. "Wanted to get started while it is still cool," Vincent replied, pausing to wipe his forehead with his sleeve. "But I would not say no to coffee if you have got some ready." Olivia brought him a cup, along with fresh biscuits and jam. Vincent accepted them gratefully, taking a break to eat while she checked on the animals. The morning routine took her nearly 2 hours, feeding everyone, refilling water troughs, checking for injuries or illness, cleaning the areas where the animals slept. By the time she finished, Vincent had already accomplished an impressive amount of work. The days fell into a rhythm. Vincent worked from dawn until dusk, Stopping only for the meals Olivia brought him, and occasionally to help her with heavier tasks like hauling water or moving feed sacks. He was patient with the animals, always pausing to greet them when they approached, never shooing them away even when they interfered with his work. Olivia noticed how the dogs followed him around, how even the cats started warming to him, rubbing against his legs when he came inside for dinner. They talked during meals, sharing stories about their lives. Vincent told her about growing up on the ranch, about learning to ride before he could properly walk, about the day he said goodbye to the only home he had ever known. Olivia shared memories of her father, a quiet man who had loved books and taught her to read when she was small, who had never remarried after her mother died in childbirth. "He sounds like a good man," Vincent said one evening as they sat on the porch steps, watching the animals settle down for the night. "He was," Olivia agreed. "He never understood why I cared so much about strays, but he supported me anyway. Built that shed so I would have somewhere to put the first dog I found. That was 4 years ago, a little terrier someone had kicked so hard it could not walk. I nursed it back to health, and it lived with us for 2 years before it passed away peacefully in its sleep." "You gave it a good life," Vincent said quietly. "That matters." Olivia looked at him, at the genuine understanding in his expression, and felt something shift inside her chest. She had been so focused on her animals, on just surviving day to day, that she had forgotten what it felt like to connect with another person. But Vincent made it easy. He did not demand anything from her, did not expect her to be anything other than who she was. By the end of the first week, the frame of the new shelter was complete. It was larger than Olivia had imagined, with room for at least a dozen animals and space to grow. Vincent worked with impressive skill, his hands sure and steady as he fitted boards together, his eye for detail evident in every straight line and solid joint. "You are really good at this," Olivia said, watching him work one afternoon. "Why are you wandering around taking odd jobs?" "You could make a good living as a carpenter." Vincent paused, hammer in hand, and considered the question. "I suppose I have been running," he admitted. "After I lost the ranch, lost my parents, I did not want to stay still. Felt like if I kept moving, I would not have to face what I lost. But lately I have been thinking maybe it is time to stop running, find a place to settle down." "Do you think San Diego could be that place?" Olivia asked, her heart beating a little faster than usual. Vincent looked at her directly, and she saw something in his eyes that made her breath catch. "It could be," he said slowly, "if I had a reason to stay." The air between them felt charged, heavy with things unsaid. Olivia wanted to ask what he meant, wanted to tell him that she had started looking forward to seeing him each morning, that the cabin felt too empty now when he was not around. But fear held her tongue. What if she was misreading the situation? What if he was just being kind? Before she could find the courage to speak, one of the dogs started barking frantically. They both turned to see a wagon approaching, driven by a man Olivia recognized from town. Vincent set down his hammer and moved to stand beside her, a protective gesture that did not go unnoticed. The wagon stopped and the man climbed down, dragging a large burlap sack behind him. "Miss Nash," he said gruffly, not bothering with pleasantries. "Found this in the alley behind my store. Figured you would want it." He opened the sack and a small, terrified puppy tumbled out, so young its eyes were barely open. Olivia gasped and immediately scooped up the tiny creature, cradling it against her chest. The puppy whimpered, shaking uncontrollably. Who would do this? She whispered, appalled. The man shrugged. "People are cruel. Anyway, I cannot keep it and I do not have time to find it a home. You want it, or should I just leave it in the desert?" "I will take it," Olivia said firmly, even though she knew she was already stretched too thin. Thank you for bringing it to me." The man grunted, climbed back into his wagon, and drove away without another word. Olivia looked down at the puppy, feeling the rapid beat of its tiny heart against her palm. "It will need to be fed every few hours," Vincent said quietly, stepping closer to examine the puppy. "It is too young to be away from its mother. Do you have milk?" "Some," Olivia said. "I will need to go to town for more." "I will go," Vincent offered. "You stay here and get that little one warm and comfortable. Write me a list of what you need." Olivia nodded gratefully. She went inside and prepared a small box lined with soft rags, placing it near the stove for warmth. Vincent left for town while she tried to get the puppy to drink milk from a cloth soaked in it. The tiny creature resisted at first but gradually began to suckle, its trembling slowly subsiding. Vincent returned within the hour, carrying not just milk, but also feeding bottles designed for lambs that could be adapted for the puppy. "The pharmacist said these might work better," he explained, showing her how to use them. Together they worked to feed the puppy, taking turns holding it and coaxing it to drink. Their hands brushed against each other multiple times, and each touch sent a spark through Olivia's body. She was acutely aware of Vincent's closeness, the warmth of his body next to hers, the gentle way he spoke to the puppy. "You are going to make it," Vincent murmured to the tiny animal. "You are safe now." Olivia's throat tightened with emotion. She had been fighting alone for so long, trying to save every broken creature that crossed her path. Having someone beside her, someone who understood and helped without judgment, meant more than she could express. That night, they took turns checking on the puppy every 2 hours. Olivia would doze off for a bit, then wake to find Vincent already up, feeding the puppy with patient care. In the early morning hours, she came downstairs to find him sitting at the table, the puppy sleeping peacefully in the crook of his arm. "You should rest," she said softly, not wanting to wake the puppy. "You have been working all day and now you have been up all night." "I am all right," Vincent said, but his eyes were tired. "Besides, I wanted to make sure this little fighter had the best chance possible." Olivia sat down beside him, close enough that their shoulders touched. "Thank you," she said quietly, "for everything. For building the shelter, for helping with the puppy, for just being here. I have been alone for a long time, and I did not realize how much I missed having someone to share this with." Vincent turned to look at her, his dark eyes searching her face. "Olivia," he said, his voice rough with fatigue and something deeper. "I need to tell you something. When I rode up to your place 2 weeks ago, I was just looking for work, somewhere to rest for a bit before moving on. But being here with you, seeing what you do, who you are, it has changed something in me. I do not want to leave. I want to stay here and help you save every stray that wanders through. I want to build you a dozen shelters if that is what it takes. I want to wake up every morning knowing I get to see you." Olivia's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. "Vincent," she breathed. "I feel the same way. I did not want to say anything because I thought you would leave when the 2 weeks were up. But the truth is, I cannot imagine this place without you now. You have become essential to me, to all of this." Vincent shifted carefully, mindful of the sleeping puppy, and reached up to cup Olivia's face with his free hand. "Can I kiss you?" he asked, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone. "Yes," Olivia whispered, leaning into his touch. The kiss was gentle at first, tentative, both of them aware of the precious life Vincent still held. But it deepened quickly, 2 years of loneliness and grief melting away in the warmth of connection. When they finally pulled apart, Olivia was smiling, tears of happiness sliding down her cheeks. "I love you," Vincent said simply. "I know it has only been 2 weeks, but I have never been more certain of anything in my life." "I love you too," Olivia replied, her voice shaking with emotion. I did not think I would ever feel this way about anyone." They sat together as dawn broke, the puppy sleeping peacefully between them, the beginning of a new life taking shape in the soft morning light. When the sun was fully up, Vincent carefully transferred the puppy to its box and went outside to continue work on the shelter. But now there was a new energy to his movements, a joy that had been absent before. Over the next week, the shelter took its final shape. Vincent added touches Olivia had not expected. A small porch where she could sit and observe the animals, hooks for hanging supplies, even a carved sign above the door that read "Safe Haven." He worked longer hours, driven by a desire to finish the project and prove he was committed to staying. The puppy continued to thrive under their joint care, growing stronger each day. The other animals seemed to sense the change in the household, becoming more relaxed, more playful. Even the burro, who had been skittish and nervous when Olivia first found him, started braying happily when Vincent approached. One afternoon, Olivia was cleaning inside the nearly finished shelter when she heard riders approaching. She stepped out to see 3 men on horseback, rough-looking characters with guns on their hips. Vincent was working on the roof and climbed down quickly, positioning himself between Olivia and the strangers. "Can I help you, gentlemen?" Vincent asked, his voice level but carrying an edge of warning. The lead rider, a burly man with a scar across his cheek, looked around the property with disdain. "We heard there was a woman out here taking in animals. We have got some horses that need tending. They are not in good shape, but we will pay you to fix them up." Olivia stepped forward despite Vincent's subtle attempt to keep her behind him. "What is wrong with your horses?" she asked. "They have been ridden hard," the man said with an unpleasant grin. "Maybe a little too hard, but you can make them right, cannot you?" Vincent's jaw tightened. "Those horses need rest, not more abuse. Why do you not just let them recover on your own land?" "Because we need them ready to ride again in a few days," another rider chimed in. "And we heard Miss Nash here has a soft heart for suffering creatures." Olivia felt sick. These men were outlaws or close to it, and they wanted her to nurse their abused horses back to health so they could continue mistreating them. Everything in her rebelled against the idea. "No," she said firmly. "I will not help you hurt animals. If you want to leave the horses here permanently, I will care for them. Otherwise, you need to leave my property." The scarred man's expression darkened. "That is not very neighborly of you, Miss Nash. We are offering to pay." "And I am refusing," Olivia said, crossing her arms. "Please leave." The tension crackled in the air. Vincent moved slightly, his hand resting near the knife on his belt. He was not wearing a gun, but his posture made it clear he would fight if necessary. The lead rider stared at them for a long moment, then spat in the dirt. "You are making a mistake, lady. People who do not cooperate tend to have accidents out here." "Are you threatening her?" Vincent asked, his voice dangerously quiet. "Just stating facts," the man replied. "Come on, boys. Let us leave these fools to their pets." The 3 riders wheeled their horses around and galloped away, leaving a cloud of dust in their wake. Olivia let out a breath she had not realized she was holding, her knees suddenly weak. "Are you all right?" Vincent asked, immediately turning to her with concern. "Yes," Olivia said, though she was shaking. "Do you think they will come back?" "Maybe," Vincent admitted. "Men like that do not like being told no. We should be careful for the next few days, keep an eye out." That night, Vincent moved his bedroll from the shed to the porch, positioning himself where he could watch the approach to the property. Olivia barely slept, listening for sounds of trouble, grateful for Vincent's presence. Nothing happened that night or the next, but the threat hung over them like a storm cloud. 3 days later, Vincent finished the shelter. It was magnificent, far exceeding anything Olivia had imagined. They moved the animals in together, marveling at how much space there was, how comfortable and secure everything felt. The burro had his own stall with room to move around. The goat had a separate area with a small outdoor pen. The dogs could come and go as they pleased through a door Vincent had designed specifically for them. Even the cats approved, claiming the rafters as their new domain. "This is perfect," Olivia said, standing in the center of the shelter and turning slowly to take it all in. "Vincent, you have given them such a wonderful home." Vincent came to stand beside her, slipping his arm around her waist. "I gave us a wonderful home," he corrected gently. "Because I am staying, Olivia. I am not going anywhere." She turned in his arms, looking up at him with shining eyes. "I want you to stay. I want us to build a life together, to keep helping animals, to wake up beside each other every morning." "Is that a proposal, Miss Nash?" Vincent asked with a teasing smile. "Maybe it is, Mr. Garrison," Olivia replied, feeling bold and happy and more alive than she had in years. Vincent laughed and pulled her closer, kissing her deeply. "Then I accept," he murmured against her lips. "I will marry you, Olivia Nash, and spend the rest of my life making you happy." They were married a month later in a simple ceremony at the small church in San Diego. Mrs. Chen from the general store served as witness, along with the pharmacist who had helped with the puppy. Olivia wore a simple white dress she had sewn herself, and Vincent borrowed a proper suit from a friend he had made while working odd jobs in town to earn money for their future. After the wedding, they returned to the property that was now truly their home. Vincent had spent the past month not just finishing the shelter, but also making improvements to the cabin, expanding it to include a real bedroom and a larger kitchen. He had repaired the roof, replaced worn floorboards, and built Olivia a proper table where she could prepare medicines and treatments for the animals. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, two lonely people finally finding home in each other's arms. Olivia had been nervous, but Vincent was patient and gentle, making sure she felt cherished and safe. They lay together afterwards, tangled in sheets and each other, talking about their dreams for the future. "I want to expand the shelter even more," Olivia said, tracing patterns on Vincent's chest with her fingertips. "Maybe build a second barn for larger animals like horses and cows. I know there are so many more out there that need help." "Then we will build it," Vincent promised. "Whatever you need, whatever those animals need, we will make it happen together." "And maybe someday," Olivia said shyly, "we could have children of our own. A family." Vincent rolled over to face her, his expression serious and full of love. "I would like that," he said. "I would like that very much. A house full of children and animals, noise and chaos and love. It sounds perfect." The months that followed were filled with hard work and happiness. Word spread about the sanctuary Olivia and Vincent had created, and people started bringing animals from all over the county. Some were strays, abandoned or lost. Others were abused or injured, needing medical care and rehabilitation. Olivia and Vincent turned away no creature in need. Vincent proved to be as good with animals as Olivia herself. He had a gift for gentling even the most traumatized horses, spending hours just sitting with them, talking quietly until they learned to trust again. Together, they created a system. Olivia focused on the medical care and feeding, while Vincent handled the building maintenance and training. They complemented each other perfectly, each one's strengths balancing the other's weaknesses. The men who had threatened them never returned, but Vincent remained vigilant. He taught Olivia how to shoot, insisting she needed to be able to protect herself and the animals when he was away. She proved to be a natural marksman, much to Vincent's pride. Winter came, cold and occasionally rainy, unusual for San Diego but not unheard of. Vincent had prepared well, insulating the shelter and ensuring every animal had warm bedding. They spent long evenings by the fire, Olivia mending clothes or preparing medicines while Vincent carved small toys and figures from scrap wood. He was making a set of animals, he explained, for the children they would have someday. In the spring of 1883, Olivia discovered she was pregnant. She told Vincent one morning over breakfast, watching his face transform from confusion to understanding to pure joy in the span of seconds. "A baby," he said, his voice cracking with emotion. "We are going to have a baby." "Yes," Olivia confirmed, laughing as Vincent swept her up in his arms, spinning her around the kitchen before carefully setting her down as if she were made of glass. "I am going to be a father," Vincent said wonderingly. "I am going to build our child the best cradle anyone has ever seen. And we will need to add another room to the cabin, and child-proof the shelter. Are you feeling all right? Do you need to sit down? Should I fetch the doctor, Vincent?" Olivia said, taking his hands in hers. "Breathe, I am fine. The baby will not arrive for months yet. We have plenty of time to prepare." But Vincent was already planning, sketching designs for a nursery, talking about teaching their child to ride and care for animals. His excitement was infectious, and Olivia found herself dreaming about the future in ways she never had before. She imagined a little boy with Vincent's dark hair and steady hands, or a little girl with her determination and love for creatures in need. The pregnancy progressed smoothly. Olivia continued her work with the animals, though Vincent insisted on taking over the heavier tasks. She spent more time on the porch, watching him work, one hand resting on her growing belly. The animals seemed to sense the change, becoming protective of her. The dogs followed her everywhere, and even the cats were more affectionate than usual. In November of 1883, during the first cool snap of the season, Olivia went into labor. Vincent rode to town at breakneck speed to fetch the midwife, then paced anxiously outside the bedroom while Olivia worked to bring their child into the world. The labor was long and difficult, and Vincent wore a path in the floorboards with his worried pacing. Finally, in the early hours of the morning, he heard the sound he had been waiting for, the piercing cry of a newborn. The midwife opened the door, smiling broadly. "You have a son, Mr. Garrison. A big, healthy boy, and your wife did beautifully." Vincent rushed into the room to find Olivia propped up on pillows, exhausted but radiant, holding a red-faced infant wrapped in blankets. She looked up as he entered, tears streaming down her face. "Vincent," she whispered, "come meet our son." He approached slowly, reverently, as if afraid he might break the spell. When he looked down at the baby's tiny face, his heart exploded with a love so fierce it nearly brought him to his knees. This was his son, his and Olivia's, a miracle. "What should we name him?" Vincent asked, gently touching one impossibly small hand. The baby's fingers wrapped around his thumb with surprising strength. "I was thinking Thomas," Olivia said. "After my father, Thomas Garrison." "Thomas," Vincent repeated, testing the name. "It is perfect. He is perfect. You are perfect." He leaned down to kiss Olivia, then kissed his son's forehead with infinite tenderness. The family he had thought lost forever had been reborn in this moment, in this place, with this woman and this child. The months after Thomas's birth were chaotic and exhausting and wonderful. The baby was colicky and demanding, crying at all hours, but neither Vincent nor Olivia minded. They took turns walking him around the cabin in the middle of the night, singing lullabies and making up stories. The animals adjusted to the new addition with surprising grace. The dogs appointed themselves guardians, sleeping outside the nursery door. The cats took turns watching over the cradle Vincent had carved from oak. As Thomas grew, he showed signs of inheriting both his parents' best qualities. He had Olivia's compassionate nature, crying when he saw injured animals and reaching out to comfort them, even as a toddler. He had Vincent's steady hands and patient temperament, able to sit quietly for long periods watching the animals or helping his father with simple tasks. By 1885, the sanctuary had grown substantially. Vincent had built the second barn Olivia dreamed of, along with several additional enclosures for different types of animals. They had helped dozens of creatures over the years, finding permanent homes for those that could be adopted and providing lifetime care for those too damaged to be placed elsewhere. Their reputation spread beyond San Diego, and people started arriving from as far away as Los Angeles bringing animals that needed help. The work was demanding, but they managed it together, a true partnership in every sense. Vincent handled the business side, keeping records and managing finances, while Olivia focused on the caregiving. Young Thomas toddled between them, learning to feed chickens and pet goats, growing up surrounded by love in all its forms. One spring evening, as they sat on the porch watching Thomas play with the dogs in the yard, Vincent took Olivia's hand and squeezed it gently. "Do you ever regret this life?" he asked quietly. "It is not easy what we do. We will never be wealthy. We work harder than most people would consider sane." Olivia turned to look at him, at this man who had wandered into her life and transformed it completely. "Regret," she said. "Vincent, I have never been happier. Every morning I wake up grateful. Grateful for you, for Thomas, for the chance to help creatures that would otherwise suffer. This life we have built together, it is everything I never knew I wanted." "I feel the same way," Vincent admitted. "Before I found you, I was just drifting. But you gave me purpose, a reason to stay in one place and build something that matters. You gave me a family." They kissed as the sun set over their land, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. Thomas's laughter rang out across the yard as the dogs chased him in circles. In the barn, the animals settled in for the night, safe and cared for. Everything was as it should be. In 1886, Olivia became pregnant again. This time the pregnancy was easier, and she delivered a daughter they named Grace. She had Olivia's red gold hair and Vincent's dark eyes, a beautiful combination. Thomas was enchanted with his baby sister, insisting on helping with everything from diaper changes to feeding time. The family continued to grow, both in size and in purpose. By 1888, they were caring for more than 50 animals at any given time. Vincent had to hire help, bringing on 2 young men from town who were good with animals and willing to learn. The sanctuary had become a fixture in the community, a place people knew they could turn to when they found creatures in need. Olivia and Vincent's love deepened with each passing year, weathering challenges and celebrating victories together. They argued sometimes, as all couples do, usually about practical matters like finances or how to handle a particularly difficult animal. But they always worked through it, never going to bed angry, always remembering that they were partners facing the world together. On their 10th wedding anniversary in 1893, Vincent surprised Olivia with a trip into San Diego for dinner at the finest restaurant in town. It was rare for them both to leave the sanctuary at the same time, but their hired help could manage for one evening. They dressed in their best clothes, Vincent in a suit he had purchased specifically for the occasion, Olivia in a new dress of deep blue that brought out the color of her eyes. Over dinner, Vincent pulled out a small box and slid it across the table. Olivia opened it to find a simple gold locket on a delicate chain. "Open it," Vincent urged. Inside were 2 tiny photographs, one of Thomas and one of Grace. Olivia's eyes filled with tears as she looked at the faces of her children, perfectly captured in miniature. "Vincent," she breathed. "This is beautiful. How did you manage this?" I took them into town last month while you were treating that injured hawk, Vincent admitted. I wanted you to have something that showed what we built together, our family. Olivia stood up and came around the table to kiss him, not caring that they were in public. I love you, she said fiercely. I love you so much it sometimes scares me. What if something happened to you? What if I lost you? Vincent pulled her into his lap, holding her close. You are not going to lose me, he promised. I am not going anywhere. We are going to grow old together, Olivia. We are going to watch our children grow up and have children of their own. We are going to keep saving animals and living this beautiful, chaotic life until we are too old to do anything but sit on the porch and remember. And that is exactly what they did. The years rolled on, bringing challenges and changes but never dimming the love between them. Thomas grew into a strong, kind young man who took over much of the physical work at the sanctuary. Grace became her mother's apprentice, learning everything about animal medicine and care. Eventually, both children married and had families of their own, but they stayed close to the sanctuary, helping to run it and continuing the mission their parents had started. Vincent and Olivia did grow old together, just as he had promised. By 1910, when they were both in their early 50s, they had slowed down considerably. Their hair was gray, their hands marked with the wear of decades of hard work, but their love was as strong as ever. They spent their days supervising rather than doing the heavy labor themselves, content to let the younger generation carry the torch. One evening in late summer, they sat on the porch as they had done thousands of times before. The sanctuary had grown to encompass 20 acres, with multiple barns and enclosures housing over 100 animals at any given time. It had become a model for animal welfare throughout California, drawing visitors and students who wanted to learn their methods. We did good, did we not? Olivia said, leaning against Vincent's shoulder. We did better than good, Vincent replied, wrapping his arm around her. We built something that will outlast us, that will keep helping animals long after we are gone. Do you ever think about that day you rode up to my property? Olivia asked. What would have happened if you had just kept riding? Every day, Vincent admitted. I think about how close I came to missing you. It terrifies me to imagine what my life would have been like if I had not stopped here. I think about it too, Olivia said. I was so alone before you came. I had my animals, but it was not the same. You completed me in ways I did not know I needed. They sat in comfortable silence as the sun set over the land they had shaped with their own hands, guided by love and determination. The animals moved peacefully through their evening routines, safe and cared for. Their grandchildren's laughter floated from one of the barns where Thomas was teaching his eldest son to properly halter a horse. Grace's daughter was inside the main house, helping her grandmother prepare medicine for a new arrival, a dog that had been found abandoned on the road. The cycle continued, generation after generation learning that kindness mattered, that every life had value, that love expressed through action could change the world one creature at a time. It had all started with a young woman who could not turn away suffering and a cowboy who had built her a bigger shelter. But it had become so much more, a legacy of compassion that would endure long after both of them were gone. I love you, Olivia Garrison, Vincent said as stars began appearing in the darkening sky. I love you, Vincent Garrison, Olivia replied, turning to kiss him sweetly. Always and forever. They remained on the porch long into the night, two people who had found each other against all odds and built a life that mattered. The sanctuary stood as proof that one person's compassion could change the world, and that two people working together could change it even more. Every animal they had saved, every life they had touched, every lesson they had passed to their children and grandchildren, It all rippled outward like circles on water, spreading hope and healing far beyond what they could see. As the moon rose high overhead, bathing the sanctuary in silver light, Vincent and Olivia finally went inside to bed. They climbed the stairs slowly, hand in hand as always, ready to rest before another day of work and love and purpose. Their story was not one of dramatic adventure or grand gestures, but of steady devotion and daily choices to show up, to care, to build something beautiful out of broken things. It was a story of two hearts that recognized each other, of a love that grew stronger through service to others, of a cowboy who built a bigger shelter, and a woman who made room in her heart for everyone who needed it. And in the end, it was exactly the story both of them needed, the one they had been searching for without knowing it, the happily ever after they had built together one nail, one rescued creature, one shared sunrise at a time.